look who's back. Our interns. Our interns are joining us today on our podcast. We did name it Another Week of Available Work.
Oh, that's so good to
there you
hear.
go.
I'm actually relieved.
We're talking interns. It's Intern Day on our podcast, and we're welcoming back our Line 5 folks. Apparently, we hadn't had anybody in the in the studio here, so this is really a special occasion. Folks and listeners, we have our interns that joined us last summer, I think it was,
yeah.
last
last summer.
And then they went off and did great things, and they decided to spend their spring break back with us.
Nowhere else I'd rather be.
Yeah, I was. But I'm so excited. Let's introduce each other, everybody. Cailyn, let's start with you.
Yeah,
Tell us what you've been doing, where you're from, what's your favorite subject in school right
Oh
now?
gosh. Okay. Yeah, I'm Cailyn. I am originally from, I guess, the Cedar Park area, so just north of Austin. I've never really been away from Austin. I'm studying rhetoric and writing in school, which doesn't mean anything to most people, but it's basically just, obviously writing, a lot of speech skills, research skills, persuasion, and argumentative skills. All that to say, I'm just getting ready for law school. But last summer I was a policy, marketing, and communications intern, which, there was a lot under that umbrella. I did a lot of policy research, I guess, on things around the state. A lot more than I thought I would. I thought I would just be, researching like the job market or something. Sure. And I remember my first kind of research project was about desalination plants in Corpus Christi. And it took me a few days before I even realized, what does this have to do with the job market or with employment at all? So it was cool to kind of just get to research a bunch of different things through the lens of employment.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because ultimately what I was really kind of getting at was I was trying to get you to just do my work for me.
Yeah.
And that was, obviously, we bring on a ringer as a research person and that knows communication. You guys are my first interns, and we'll get back into that. But Mason, how you been, man?
I'm good. Law school is law school. It's a difficult task, but I do still enjoy it a lot. I'm trying to still do labor and employment law, which is a very interesting field in Texas, having such a constantly expanding labor market. When I was here, I worked as a law clerk in your office, doing a lot of work with the attorneys with unemployment insurance cases.
Right.
I think it's very interesting. It's a very niche area. It's great to be able to get involved in that. I think it's not something that's typically taught at law schools. And I can say it's definitely very valuable when it comes to interviewing for other positions. It actually comes up a lot. People want to have that explained. They're like, I've dealt with TWC before, and what's it like behind the scenes? How do you go through the process? So it's actually a nice thing to have as kind of an icebreaker with other Texas employers when you're applying for positions.
Yeah, no, and that was really, really great because you were basically jumped right in with our attorneys, and you were reviewing cases. They had spun you up on the appeals process that these cases go, and you won a few, I think. I don't know. Did you remember what your record was when it comes to our cases?
I actually don't remember. I think it was like maybe
because it's not about our record.
I think it was like two or three. Maybe.
Right. The attorneys are shaking their heads. But it was. I took a lot of pride in that, in thinking that was work that although supervised, because you're obviously still student, you're already doing the actual work, and that's really what I had always tried to get. Internships. I started as an intern with the Texas General Land Office, and I think I've mentioned that before. On top of, there were times where I was, cleaning out a file room or doing something like that, but they engaged me in actual work that was meaningful to the office. And you're supervised, so it was always helpful to the office, but I always wanted to make sure that it was going to impart something that was useful to you. And because you're representing our office after you leave here, you're going to be telling other folks that are looking for internships that we're a good possibility to look into. At TWC, like a lot of state agencies, we have an internship program. This is kind of how you guys got interested, how y'all joined us. We try to make it a little bit more of a diverse program to where you'll get to meet and work with the other interns in other divisions and learn what the other divisions are doing. I guess it's not too unique to a lot of agencies, because when we were bringing internships, say when I was at the Secretary of State's office, I wanted the intern to understand how the office worked in the bigger picture of things. I tell employers, you're gonna have an intern. What are they gonna tell their friends when they're like, "What'd you do for your summer?" You learn a little bit about how the government works, how the state agencies work, of the budget process. I wanted you to have that experience, so hopefully we took care of that. Mason, do you want to talk a little bit about how you're using this experience? You kind of mentioned a little bit during interviews, but how are you using this experience when it comes to what you're doing in school and kind of where you're moving forward to that?
Yeah, sure. I think one major way is it actually helped a lot with my writing, and also, reading cases. I think helps a lot. I mean, that's pretty much all you do in law school most of the time is reading cases. And so it's nice to be able to have an experience of having a real caseload that you're dealing with, real people, real stories. When you get to law school, that's a lot of what you're dealing with. And so I think it makes you a better student to be able to go through that, to, I guess, see a real side of it. It makes it easier to read, because when you're just reading it before, it's like you're reading any of their textbooks. Sometimes it just goes in one ear and out the other. But after you've had an experience of seeing the entire process of a case, it kind of means something more, if that makes sense. It has substance that it might not otherwise have. And at the same time, being able to write up parts of those cases or arguments for them so briefly, sometimes you had to get really straight to the issue in the case. And that helps a lot in legal writing. Is lawyers don't like wasting their time. I mean, sometimes there's billable hours, so cutting out your time isn't always necessarily bad. But at the same time, you really want to get to what's most important in the case. And it really helps to try to make a one-page write-up that can be presented before the commission. Writing that really helps you brief cases or do other arguments in classes that you might have when you have to be able to get straight to the issue at hand.
Yeah, that's good. Anything's changing from your experience, Cailyn?
I mean, I mentioned the desal plants earlier, but I learned so much in different fields. And those desal plans, actually, I used the research that I had on those to write an op-ed for one of my classes. And the professor said, "This is so thorough, you should write your senior thesis on this." And so that kind of actually prompted an interest for me, in that specific area that I otherwise probably would have never even known existed. And that might even be an area of interest that I carry forward into law school. But ultimately, you just never know what you're going to learn. Coming into this internship, I had no idea what I was going to learn, what I was going to do. And
I didn't either.
Right. You learn as you go.
Yeah.
And you just pick up so much information just every single day. And you don't know what you're going to take forward with you.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
And Cailyn, I will tell you this: that to get back to it, the method really was to help me, and it was something that every time we went down to South Texas, the subject always came up, and I realized that I wasn't as knowledgeable of the subject, the stakeholders, what it's going to do to bring jobs, and that really we discovered a lot about the necessity. We know water is a huge impact in Texas. We always have. And so we got to see where a lot of that initiative is. And when I went back down to Corpus and we started talking to the people, I'd already learned from our local workforce. So we kind of brainstormed who you should talk, who's a good person to connect with to get, it was almost kind of like you were reporting. You were, who are your sources? Who are you going to interview and to gain access to the information that you're looking for, and to provide that, the report to me.
Right.
And most people that you'd already been there. When I got there, they were like, "Well, we talked to Cailyn in your office. She was awesome." They had a lot of great things about what you were doing and how you worked. And that leads us into another huge thing that I'm, we're all about at TWC is, the development of communication, especially in soft skills. That's the buzzword, right now and in years, in the last few years, especially with COVID. For students coming out of high school, that employers are asking, what are we doing to train the next students, the next workforce that's emerging out of school on how to navigate, a work day. Are y'all seeing anything like that, like in school? Mm-hmm. Do y'all see any changes in that type of practice as far as like how to encourage y'all for to increase or to better your soft skills? Are y'all recognizing any of that training that puts you in those situations, or are y'all doing it yourselves?
I would say, at least in my area of study, we get really deep into academic work, but we don't focus a ton on soft skills. I think that is something unique to internships.
Yeah.
Or just to work in general. There's certain things that you only learn when you're in an office or in a workspace.
Yeah.
Maybe presentation skills from school and public speaking, but research, but that's probably the extent of it. But no, yeah, I think there's things that you really only get good at and you really only learn how to do when you're in an office.
Yeah.
Or when you're in a job.
Yeah, I agree. That's perfect. Thank you for that. Mason, let me throw a question to you.
Sure, yeah.
Why do you think this podcast is we set this thing up to educate mostly employers. I mean, it's come from the employer office, but also workforce development. So our audience is made up of probably mostly employers, and like the 17 friends I've asked to like log on and follow us. But why do you think it's important that employers see the value in providing an internship?
I think studying law is one thing, and I think practicing it is something else. They tell us that a lot in law school. They say take every chance you can get for practical experience. I think part of it is because law is very built on tradition, and a lot of what we deal with is a very traditional academic landscape of reading and going in a class and having a professor, cold call you about a case and you need to recite it. I mean, that is pretty much most classes. Some stand out. There's some seminars. But having an actual opportunity to be involved with, as I said before, like the legal process in any form, whether that's an agency or with like a public defender's office or with the attorney general. I mean, those are things that, or especially with employers, those are things that make the future legal professionals better. And that not only helps the legal professionals themselves, but certainly employers. I mean, they want to have skilled professionals. Yeah. It helps to not only foster a connection between that person and where they're working, but also with just the area that they're working in. It helps students learn what are the needs, the issues currently in that area, whatever that field of law may be. I mean, obviously it depends on the experience that you have, so I can't speak a whole lot to like bigger law firms or bigger corporate law, but still it exposes you to what is currently the issues. I mean, when you're reading cases, you're reading a lot of historical issues and things that have been overcome or things that have changed, which is still important and very valuable. But at the same time, you're not exposed to the current state of things, and especially in a world changing, just such a dynamic world, constantly changing. It's very important to be able to be involved as much as possible. And I think that is a genuinely beneficial experience, certainly for students, but certainly especially for employers.
Yeah.
You don't want students who are having to learn, or new hires that are learning when they arrive. You want people who are ready to work when they get there.
Anything, Cailyn?
Yeah, I would just say from a practical standpoint too, I think I will credit colleges and universities and trade schools with kind of being up to date and being with the times. And I think I've learned a lot about how to just be an efficient student and how to consume and knowledge and research efficiently. And I think those are skills that a lot of young people have that I think is really refreshing into different workspaces. And I think there's just overall just things we learn in college that are always developing. And so whenever we bring those kind of younger, newer perspectives and skills into the office, I think that's just refreshing for employers to have those perspectives.
That's great. Yeah, and I always think if we're selling the idea to employers on why they should have an internship, I always like to mention that just the perspective. I think you guys brought a lot of great perspective just because of your experience up to this point into a lot of stuff that we did. So I definitely thank y'all for always kind of speaking your mind and telling us how things kind of see to you guys.
Yeah.
When I was an intern, I like I mentioned, I started with the GLO, and mainly because I was looking for an internship that would take me down to Corpus Christi, and so their field office had an opportunity. I jumped on it. I interviewed. I got it, and lo and behold, after my internship was done, I waited about 3-4 months, and I continued to have communication with them, and I kept telling them, or basically I left it with, if there's any possibility y'all would have an opening, I'd be definitely interested in it. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, they were able to create an opening and put me to work doing a lot of what I was doing as an intern and more. 25% more interns are 25% more likely to start, a full-time job within 6 months of finishing the graduation. Mm. That's a metric that we're pushing out. And they say that 44% actually stay with the company they intern with for 5 years or more. And I didn't stay with GLO for actually it was 4.5 years, but a year of that I was deployed to Iraq, so I'm still counting that. Mm-hmm. It still counts as state service, y'all, for veterans. By the way, so I get that, and I'll have a lot to say about. I think I think that goes up exponentially. For one, if you're treated well, you're going to want to come back. And like I told you guys, I know you guys were arguing with me, but I said one day you guys are going to come back. So now that prophecy is fulfilled. So let me ask you what. We're currently interviewing some great prospects right now. We always look for a law intern and a policy intern. Mm-hmm. And so right now we're going through our applications, and we've got quite a bit of few. One of their first jobs that I'm going to have is to tell all their friends to link and follow and start listening to these. Keep it playing in the other room.
On loop.
Or stream.
Streaming in the other room. But what advice would you give our next round of interns? Because again, you guys hold a special place in my heart because you're my first interns when it comes to being here at this office. What kind of advice would you give your replacement when it comes to our policy person? Or Mason, you want to go first?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, Cailyn looked at me.
Yeah,
I did that too earlier.
Great,
so that's fair.
Subtle cues.
I think
nonverbal.
Take every opportunity you can to be involved. I think that it's really easy as a student to kind of go into summer mode, just to kind of and there are opportunities to relax. I mean, I definitely don't think an internship is as difficult as a semester of law school. So from the legal perspective, I think that it is still somewhat relaxing comparatively. But at the same time, there will be opportunities to get involved or ask questions or do more than just what you're assigned. And I think that that's really important, not only to connect with the people around you, the people you work with, but also in terms of being exposed to other things. Whether that's the conferences for employers that your office puts on, or even just talking with the attorneys about questions you have on a case, even if it isn't related to maybe the issue that you're reading the case for. If there's something that you're not familiar with, or something you just want to know more about, or how employment law works in the state of Texas, I think it's a really valuable opportunity to talk with professionals who do this every single day. I mean, you have Tommy, who's probably done this longer than anybody else I've ever met, or even most of the professors that I've had. Yeah. So that's an excellent resource, and they're all fantastic just to be able to talk with about their experiences as not only attorneys but also as, I think being a legal professional is always being a student,
right?
Because there's always something to your field that you have to learn, or something new that you haven't experienced, and they can share a lot of wisdom about that journey that you might not otherwise get just from an interaction with a professor or other students. So, and I think it is certainly a unique opportunity in a government agency where things aren't a big law firm where they have maybe other motives of trying to process these certain legal hires. And this is an environment that's has a lot more camaraderie. I think it's a lot more relaxed. I think you can really get to know the people around you and make lasting connections.
That's awesome. That's well put. Cailyn, same question. What's your advice to your replacement, I guess?
Yeah, I completely agree. Definitely lean into every opportunity that you have and lean into all of the relationships that you can make. As an intern here, I'm preparing for law school. I'm still an undergrad, but I've met other interns, obviously Mason, and in other offices that are currently in law school that I'm still very much in touch with. And those are just great resources for me as I have questions about law school, right? And just like people that you can connect with that have different life experiences, and you can just help each other out with where you're at. And then obviously in the office, this was the first job that I actually enjoyed. My job before,
Huge. That's a big deal.
Yeah. My job before this, I was working at a restaurant, and I would literally show up to work anxious every single day, but this was completely the opposite. And I think just be grateful for that, and be grateful to be in an environment where, you know, you're valued as an intern and as an employee. And just take advantage of that and lean into those relationships. And then we also kind of just got the opportunity, you know, like we toured the Texas Supreme Court.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And we just went to, you know, different facilities that TWC kind of works with. And those were just really cool opportunities to learn about things around us and, you know, learn about the different agencies that TWC works with. And those were just cool. It was just really interesting. And, you know, we otherwise wouldn't have gotten to have some of those experiences. So I think just, you know, leaning into those, asking questions, meeting people and staying in touch. I think the value of that, you know, you can't say enough about that.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I actually, I'll let you know that I just brought you guys back on the podcast just to pat myself on the back. And just kind of keep the good vibes coming my way. One thing, the National Intern Day is July 31st, and I'll talk about our conference, our intern conferences that we're going to have. I think we're partnering with Dowless College for that 31st. So we're really excited for that. Those conferences are fun for me, and what I think is important always is, you know, we give interns the opportunity to engage with employers. We invite employers to have them set up. This is really kind of the linchpin of what those schools that we partner with are trying to get at. To engage you as a student to write face-to-face with an employer and ask them, you know, what that environment, what their what's it like working for you guys? You know, you're interviewing employers at that point, which I think is important. We also like to do mock interviews. Have y'all done much mock interviews?
Yeah, that's what we did. Well, that's what we did last year at National Intern Day at the conference.
That's right. Y'all went to San Antonio.
Yep.
Yeah, so you guys were on the one at San Antonio. Y'all got engaged with that, so that was a lot of fun. And also some financial literacy stuff, which I always want to sit in because I seriously need that. Usually I'm kind of drawn away by something, but yeah, July 31st. Again, employers, seriously, if you don't have an intern walking around your office right now, or you have questions on how we can support, you know, ideas on how to create those positions, contact us. Contact the Higher Education Coordinating Board. I'm sure even like our tri-agency partners with the TEA probably has some information about some support for internships. But it's important because we're investing in our future. We're investing in our businesses, and we're also, you know, we're helping our students that are on their way. Your first job. Kent Hance, former chancellor at Texas Tech, he always told us the most important job that you'll ever have is the first one that you get out of college.
Right.
You should always think about how this is going to set me up, because you're looking for experience, and maybe the first job that you get out of college is the only one you have in your entire life, and that's a, you know, you found a diamond in the rough, and if it's meaningful work, you know, continue with it. But definitely, you know, think about that. But like I said, you guys you did a great job while being here with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have no fears or doubts that you guys won't be hard up for looking for your first careers after you graduate. You're gonna be lawyers, so yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
let's hope so.
You.
Well, I appreciate that. Line 5 folks in the back, y'all pretty quiet. Did y'all anything we left out?
What are they doing next summer?
Next summer? Yeah, what are y'all doing this coming summer?
I just got a job at a law firm.
Yes.
Woo!
Dang.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
doing that for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Good.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to be. Right now, I've set up potential summer work with. There's a public interest group out in the Northwest. I think it's called the Northwest Workers Justice Project. So they do a lot of work with low income, immigrant workers, things like that. And so I think that'll be a really good experience to kind of broaden my perspective and actually interact with some working people and their needs to be able to help not only address the needs of people there, but also I think those are valuable skills that I can take back and help address the needs of working people in Texas as well.
Awesome. That's great. I'm glad to hear it. I'm excited. Thank you all for coming back and visiting us, joining us for this podcast.
Absolutely.
I know this is kind of
Happy
what
to
we're
do
doing.
it.
So,
yeah.
but I appreciate it. And we'll go ahead and cut it off there. Thanks, folks.